All right, good evening, everyone. We're going to call the meeting to order. My name is Joe Ford. I'm the chair of the Crozet Community Advisory Committee, and I want to welcome you all to our March 2023 meeting. Thank you all for joining us. We appreciate you taking the time out of your schedules to be here. As a reminder, the Crozet Community Advisory Committee is just that, an advisory subcommittee appointed by the Board of Supervisors. Those of us on the committee are all volunteers. We receive no payment, other than the only thing that brings us here is a desire to help our community participate. And so we appreciate you all joining us, and we look forward to hearing your thoughts and concerns and questions as we work through issues to try to improve Crozet for all of us. We'll start, as we traditionally do, with a brief agenda review and during introductions. As you can see, our main presentation today will be from Costas about the Western Albemarle Rescue Squad. We'll also hear from Allison about the County View website that allows us to track development projects and get a little bit of pressure on there. And then we'll also recognize some of our party members for whom this is their last meeting. We'll start with some brief introductions. It's always nice to hear who's here and what parts of Crozet are represented. So as I said, I'm Joe Ford, the chair, and I live in the Highlands community. Awesome.
I'm Allison, I'm the staff liaison, and I live in the city.
Jim Duncan, Parkside Village.
Costas Alvarez, live out on 250.
Mark McCaddy, West Hall.
Grace Reamer, Langtown Road.
Yeah, Malik, I live in Earlysville and represent you on the board.
And I'm Allie Pesh, and I live near Mid Springs Park.
I'm Ken Thacker. I live on St. George Avenue.
I'm Michael Monaco. I live in the Emerson Commons neighborhood.
I'm Sean Bird. I live on the other side of St. George.
And
St. George East.
St. George. And our attendees.
I'm Joan Fadden. I represent Stonegate Owners Association.
Bill O'Malley, I live in Westlake Hills.
Stephen Rutherford, I live in West Hall.
And you are?
Colin Rumford, West Hall.
Tom Loach, John McGapp Road.
Troy Lane, Gray Rock.
Samir Honda, Westlake.
Albert Schultz, Westlake also.
Thomas Eccles, Westlake.
At this time, we have an opportunity to approve the meeting minutes, which were circulated to the committee last week on the agenda. If there are any corrections or additions, please let us know. If not, we would entertain a motion to approve those minutes. Moved to a second. Thank you. Any additional discussion on that? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Excellent, meeting minutes are approved. Thank you very much, Michael. We'll move into announcements and updates. Are there any announcements or updates?
This is time to plug the fireworks, because if you picked up the most recent issue of the Crozet Gazette, maybe you saw that we launched the fireworks campaign GoFundMe, so check it out. Contribute. Volunteer.
Please watch the Gazette for April. I will be having 3 town halls to discuss anything anybody wants to discuss in the middle of 2 weeks. So watch there for the dates. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Allie, I believe Tim Tolson will be joining us next month.
Yeah.
To talk about fireworks as part of our community group. So
Cool.
we'll be here to plug that and let people know even more how they can do it.
Cool.
Any other announcements or updates? All right, and then we'll move into community concerns. This is the opportunity for people, either members of the committee or attendees, to share concerns about Crozet issues. We hope that we can either direct you to information, maybe help figure out where you can lodge your complaint or find an answer, or we might be able to actually address some of these. Are there any community concerns? I know, Bill, you've reached out before, so if you want to come up, actually, I can show up yours, because I know you had something you want to share, and if there's anyone else in the meantime that has any community concerns. Yes, please.
I'll just call Bill.
Oh, okay, great. All right, well, Bill, I know you reached out earlier, so let's hear yours. Okay. There you go, and you can, there you go, you can take that. Thank you very much. Sure.
Thanks, Joe. I appreciate your help in getting this up. My name is Bill O'Malley. I'm a homeowner over in Westlake, and I'm also a small business owner in Crozet. Proud to live in this community. I moved here in 2017. My long-term goal is to retire in this beautiful, wonderful place we call home. And I'm here tonight representing Westlake Hills and the homeowners, and we want to raise awareness and concerns about Oak Bluff. It's a project that's proceeding through the planning and zoning process, and you're probably going to see this in the next month or two. And just for a little context, Oak Bluff is basically 5 parcels of land that are situated between Westlake and Quarry Farm, and it's going to extend across the proposed 240, and then across Licking Hole Creek, and then to Liberty Hall, where as it gets across the creek, it's going to start up again. And basically, I'll put it in a nutshell for you, because I like to put slides in a nutshell. The developer is seeking to rezone R1 to PRD, high density. This is a, I don't know how many of you have walked it over there, but it's a highly sensitive area, protected slopes. It extends down to a large flat floodplain. And then they're gonna, again, extend. They're gonna do this all without having the 240 connector in. And they're going to do it at the expense of our community and the lifestyle that we have in our community. So that's the one key thing I want you to, there's a lot of other things on that slide, but in the interest of time, I want you to have that nutshell. And then the next thing I put up here is, this is the proposed development, but what I want to show you that's most important on this is right here, they're going to dump traffic onto Westlake, or onto West Hall Road right here. And all of these homes across here, all of these homes are model homes that were all part of, they're all the model homeowners, and I've surveyed nearly everyone. I have one to talk to. Not one of them was told about any road that was going to be across from them. There are mature trees and a big berm and a green space that our association's maintaining. And the bottom line is that's going to really impact people up here. So the other thing is, this is misleading here. If this sounds familiar, they didn't put all the units on. There's 134 units proposed. Unless our math is wrong, there's 98 units on this diagram. So what could go wrong? So that's what I'll leave you with on that slide. And then this is more of the lifestyle that was sold to us when we moved in there. We're all half-acre lots. This is the way it was originally proposed in 2012. Very similar to when I got there in 2017 and purchased. And this shows you the area right here that they're going to be developing on. And you can see the lifestyle that we bought into was a lifestyle of, again, an expansive community, a very beautiful community, a lot of walking trails, a lot of access. And again, the 240 was always sold to us. And that was always recognized. We all knew it was coming. And I also went to the county when I moved in, and I checked the zoning on this parcel. It was R1. I could live with that. I asked the developer, why didn't they develop it? And they basically said that it was too difficult to develop. It was a floodplain. So, you can see they basically sold the community on this lifestyle. So, I think that's important to point out. And the other thing I want to point out is, this is our community. It's a very welcoming, very warm community. This is where they're going to cut through a road. The model homes are here on the right. Right about here is where they're going to come out onto the road. This is what we bought into. We bought into this cuts across the middle of our development, a beautiful fountain. And one thing I would tell you is that this proposal is going to create an urban development with maximum density in a highly sensitive area with no green space transitions, no supporting infrastructure. They're going to go ahead without the 240. The 240's been approved for what, 2025?
That's when it's supposed to begin construction, yes.
But we all know that 2025 could be 2028. So based on other projects that I've seen. So, you know, that's very important to keep that in mind. There's never been any signage here that indicated that there would be roads coming through or any road access, or, you know, we all knew there was a possibility of R1 and an extension of the development, but, you know, I think they're really trying to cram the maximum amount of houses into a very sensitive environmental space.
Can I ask a quick question?
I'm really tight on time. Can we wait? Is it,
Sure.
go ahead, I'm sorry.
Who is the developer, and is it the same one who, like, built your neighborhood?
I don't know who the builder is. It's Vito Seta, and Riverbend is on the paperwork that I've seen so
And is
far.
that the same one that told you about your parcels and?
That would have been Stanley Martin. I asked Stanley Martin when I moved in why they didn't develop that parcel. And Stanley Martin told me. And Stanley Martin also failed to tell anyone, any of the model home purchasers, that there was anything going to be developed on this big berm and green space that they put in these big mature trees. So, you know, I think that's a problem. So, you know, really in closing this out, the really important thing to, you know, we recognize we're not in your backyard people. We're all really, we're all about the right smart growth in Crozet, but the bottom line is, and we recognize this owner has the right to develop the land. We just want it to be in alignment with the original zoning, the character of our community, and our community plans to engage, and we're going to be united. We want to be united. We'd like as much support as possible to really make sure that we are all, it's all about smart growth and sustainable growth supported by infrastructure. And Ann, I read, we've never met personally, but I read your re-election announcement, and this dovetails right into what you were talking about. And, you know, I think that type of growth is what Crozet needs. We need to build the infrastructure, fill in where it's reasonable and rational. And you've probably heard this before, but just because you can change the zoning, it doesn't mean you should. You know, let's do it the smart way. So I really appreciate the opportunity to share this with you guys tonight. And if you have any other questions, let me know. And I really appreciate the time. So thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry if I went over.
All right.
And I think there was another.
With Thomas's permission, I'm gonna cut in real quick. Sure, go right ahead. I'll be very brief. I just wanted to introduce myself as Samir Honda. I am one of the model homeowners that Bill was talking about. We were always told that, hey, this is protected land, this is environmental, you know, Crozet is all about sustainability and, you know, all that stuff. So this kind of like, you know, a shuffle of, I repeat what Bill said, I mean, just because you can, you shouldn't. I mean, on one hand, we talk about green sustainability, and on one hand, we're about to cut down a whole lot of trees. So, we're gonna keep this in balance here, people. So, sorry, Thomas, I didn't mean to cut in, because he was talking about model homeowners, I felt I should just. Sure.
Good evening. My name again is Thomas Eccles. I'm also a homeowner in Westlake. And I echo everything that Bill said. I'm just very concerned about the density that's going into this. I feel like also as a home buyer I was misled. That, you know, this was space that was zoned for R1. Totally support kind of smart growth. And I think that, you know, it doesn't make sense to me to put this development in without the connector, and I think that we should certainly pay attention to the environmental impacts that, that this development could have on the Lake and Whole Creek Basin. Thank you.
If the connector was in conjunction with the development, would you all support it?
Not necessarily with the zoning the way it is.
Thank you, Thomas. So this proposal was just submitted a few weeks ago. I think it was February 20th. In fact, it didn't even make it to the latest submittals that went around the same day. So this is a very recent submittal. I'm talking to Allison. I don't think the developer has yet requested a community meeting, but this type of rezoning will have a community meeting, most likely here at the CCAC meeting. Yes, and that'll probably be either April or May or June. We'll see whenever the developer and our schedule allows. Yeah, Allie.
Does anybody know what the land use designation was in the previous master plan and is in the current master plan?
It's a great question. Jim, do you
Jim, do you
somebody
know
pull
that
that
off the
up?
top of your head?
I don't know offhand.
I never pull it up. If somebody,
Anyway, I think you guys might want to add that to future presentations.
Yes.
Because zoning is only one part of the planning
yeah.
process.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure.
So they're trying to change it from R1 to what?
PRD,
Well,
up to 6 homes.
Isn't that-
PRD is not the word, but yeah, so
Plan
R6,
residential development.
R6,
It can be all different things. It
all
depends
different,
what
yeah,
you're putting in.
but we don't know what, basically, yet,
Can I ask a quick question?
yeah.
If I'm reading it too, they could go as high as 60 feet in R6, if I read the regs correctly.
Yeah, that's why I was asking about the land use designation.
Yeah.
It looks like in the 2010 plan, it is green space with maybe some neighborhood density residential on part of the property, the top and the bottom. And then the most recent master plan, if I'm looking at the right property.
While we look that information up, we're going to have Costas is going to come up and
Did you guys find it, Michael?
did you guys find
Yeah, the
it?
current one is neighborhood density residential as well,
Never
but
mind.
a little more
3 to 6,
of it, which I'm assuming is based on,
Yeah, they got rid of some green space there, right?
yeah.
Yeah, 3 to 6,
The floodplain is still over.
Yeah, so it's like the top and the bottom of it are, the neighborhood density residential, which is 3 to 6. And it looks like it was that in 2010 too, but not as much.
Yeah, whatever it is.
Yep, he's just gonna keep, it's Chet, Chet.
All right.
He's also just doing the mock clear.
Thank you to Costas, who's going to be giving us a presentation about the West
I'm
Mountain
just
Rescue
letting
Squad. As,
We can talk about it.
as we mentioned, one of the goals here is to help highlight some of our great civic organizations here in Crozet, since we have so many. And we're grateful that Costas is willing to come here and talk to us about Rescue Squad. Costas, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. I didn't necessarily know what to prepare, so I thought I'd just give you guys a little bit of an orientation of what we have vehicle-wise, maybe have a relevant as to what it costs and what's involved in running a rescue squad in Crozet. Some of you may or may not have knowledge of that. And then certainly, I welcome questions. That's kind of like the most important part of this. So we certainly will talk about our vehicles. We own several, and this is just a picture of all of them at the hospital at the same time, which is what happens in Crozet. So one of the things I want to address and let everybody know, we own 3 ambulances for the most part. Crozet has what they call a concurrency rate in Elmore County of 20% for us as an EMS agency, which means that every time we're on a call, there's a 20% chance that we will get another call while the ambulance is at the hospital. It is the second highest, and you may have to help me with this, but I think it's the second highest in the county. Seminole Trail has
Probably
the
the second
highest
one, yeah.
concurrency rate, and we run the second highest. We try to staff a couple of ambulances, and the master plan and the directive from the county for us is that we should get to anything in the growth area, which I call the pie, right? 240, 250, everything in there. We should be able to get there in 8 minutes. That's kind of the design of growth. That's mostly attainable in that our road structure, the fact that it's going through a residential area with children playing and all of those things, does not necessarily lend ourselves to that factual thing. But if you're going to call and you're in this immediate growth area of downtown Crozet, you should expect to get an ambulance within, most of the time, 90% of the time is what our values are, 8 minutes from the time we call 911. We hit that mark close to 90% of the time. Again, our numbers are right up there with any station in the county as far as hitting the marks that are expected of them. But also, when you are talking about leaving our station with traffic, especially if it's during a school transition time and trying to get into the far reaches of even the highlands, you can't drive there. I mean, if you physically drove from our station to one of these residences, you can't drive there in that time frame. Running lights and sirens sometimes is more dangerous than it is helpful. So, but anyway, just know, and then in the rural area, we cover about 240 square miles of Albemarle County. We have one of the largest surface areas of any response district in the county. And our response time there is 21 minutes to those residences. Now granted, 90% of our calls are in Crozet. We have very few calls in the more rural parts of the county. We make that metric 99% of the time. From the time we dispatch to that 21%, that 21-minute metric. We've got various ambulances. There's a couple of different things to highlight here when we talk about our vehicles and trucks. And we just want to look at, we've got a couple of vans. The uniqueness of the vans, even though it's over 20 years old, this particular one, 503, is it's 4-wheel drive. Crozet traditionally has been a pretty quiet community when it snows a lot. Most folks like to stay home. We've seen that change a little bit in the dynamics of our call volume of late. So we do have 503, which is a 4-wheel drive van, and 504 is sort of on unofficial loan to us from Scottsville.
Oh.
So Scottsville had some interactions with the county, and there's a little bit of litigation that's going on about property and who owns what. The county purchases all of our apparatus. So we have 504 on loan until all of that gets resolved. So that's just another van ambulance that's 4-wheel drive. Heavy rescue is our squad truck. It's one of 2 in Albemarle County. It runs anywhere it's needed. So let's talk about this truck a little bit. It's unique in its ability. Today, it responded 28 miles away to a wreck that was on the interstate at mile marker 128. It is unique. It carries extrication equipment. It also carries and supports fire operations. It has the ability to fill air bottles. So firefighters that are fighting fire when they wear their air packs, this truck shows up. And one of the things that it does, again, one of the 2 in the county that will actually be able to fill that breathing air. That breathing air lasts around 20 minutes if you're fighting fire. And so it's not uncommon for us to fill 30 or 40 bottles of air during a working structure fire. And that just tells you, that's one of the values of it. If we needed to replace this truck today, it would be somewhere between $1.5 to $2 million. When we bought it 5 years ago, it was $1.2 million. So interestingly enough, it is long and not so tall because our building is not so tall. So we have 10-foot doors on our building, so the truck can only be 9 foot 4 inches tall. And so it's 33 feet long. It's 4-wheel drive, so it does have some capability in the bad weather, and it's just got a variety of equipment on it. We've got a couple of 4-wheel drive response vehicles. We uniquely, and are the only agency in the county that sort of does this response plan where we put our paramedics and our advanced life support providers in the response vehicle. Put our EMTs, basic providers, in ambulances most of the time, and then we chase with a paramedic. And that just allows us a little bit more flexibility in providing coverage on calls. And we can get into a lot of detail, but probably 50% of our calls just require an EMT. They really just need someone, and if you fall and you've broken your arm, you need to have your arm splinted, you need to go to the hospital. Right? If you have the flu, you just need to go to the hospital. There's no real advanced life support. If you're having a heart attack, you're having seizures, things like that, then you need a paramedic. By responding in a vehicle like this, then we can free up our paramedic that can stay in the area if needed for a more serious call. So we use these vehicles. We also have a Gator. We're buying a new one. This one was donated to us from U.S. Tobacco about 20 years ago, so we had it for free, which is always a good price. We're replacing it with a Polaris, which is in the shop getting upgraded and upfitted, so they put a stretcher on it. The newest vehicle we have is the Jeep that you see in the background. Doesn't have any markings on it, four-wheel drive. We do run a fair number of responses off-road. So we will go with all the trails that are in Albemarle County, especially on the western side of Albemarle County. A lot of horse farms and property where folks are out riding horses that get fall off a horse, whatever it may be. We find a lot of need to respond in a four-wheel drive vehicle. This vehicle, when we have to take it off-road, is about a $50,000 vehicle versus an ambulance, which is about a $300,000 vehicle. The downside to the ambulance is that if we were to damage an ambulance, let's say it gets wrecked or whatever not, we're in the process of replacing one now. The replacement time frame is about 2 to 3 years. So if we were to order an ambulance today, it would take us probably close to just over 2 years to get another ambulance. So it's not a matter of money, and it's just a matter of being able to get one. And that's where we are in today's life.
Austin, let me get a question.
What's the lifespan on this vehicle, specifically the heavy-duty one?
The squad truck is a 20-year vehicle, 20 to 25 years we should be able to get out of that. So that's really long-term. Ambulances, we shoot for 10 years. We try to put about 100,000 miles on a chassis. And then we do have the option sometimes to refit the chassis, like take the chassis out and save the box. It has a longer warranty than the ambulances. But we usually get about 10 years out of those.
My ignorance is shown here. Could you just maybe back up a little bit and explain a little bit of the difference between what you all do and the volunteer fire rescue? I'd like to, you have the fire department that does some of these calls, right? You've got heavy rescue, there's volunteers, and maybe a little bit about the staffing level. I mean, is everybody on your crew, are they employees, are there volunteers too?
Sure.
Like, just a little bit of between the fire.
Yes.
And you are a sub, it's Albemarle County, right? It's a county department.
No.
No. Okay, well, see, there you go. That's what I'm-
So Western Rescue Squad is its own 501c3.
Okay, got it.
So we do and work part of the county fire rescue system.
Okay.
So we're a participating agency. There is an ordinance. We work within the constraints of the ordinance. We're different than the fire department. The fire department in Crozet primarily provides fire service. During the daytime, they have career staffing that do respond on medical calls. And then we provide solely medical services, other than with our squad truck, which provides like technical tech rescue stuff. We're all volunteers. Most of our crews have between 5 and 6 folks on it. We've got a fair number of UVA students, so you see some young folks. It's an opportunity. We do have a junior squad program where we have 3 or 4 folks from the high school. We feel like that's an opportunity for us to give back to the community and bringing them on so that they get the opportunity to interact with more senior folks. It's a career sort of guidance for them. It gives them an opportunity to be involved in the community also, and a lot of them stay in the area and provide, we have at least several members. One of our members who's now a nurse at Martha Jefferson joined as a junior member from Western Albemarle, went to JMU, maintained the membership the whole time, and now is a nurse in the ICU at Martha Jefferson.
And then
It still is with the rescue squad.
I've seen from the volunteer fire department sometimes just put out calls and said, hey, we need more folks, our staffing is problematic. Have you all had the same staffing problem?
Oh, yeah, so staffing is tough. The hardest thing is training, right? It takes you, an EMT class takes a semester. To make someone a paramedic takes 2 years. And so that's a tough time. We even pay for our members We have budgeted money, if somebody wants to become a paramedic, we will pay for their tuition to become a paramedic. And what we ask for is time and return. In other words, we want you to give us a 2-year commitment as a paramedic so we get some return on those money. But we do pay for training. We have a couple of different options. We're always looking for community support because when UVA goes on spring break, things get a little thin sometimes, right? So having folks that live in the community is really important. So we're always looking for folks. We don't necessarily have to be a paramedic. We have folks that just drive for us. And there's a driving course that we put people through. We have a water rescue team. That's what this truck does in particular. It supports water rescue operations. We formed a team about 3 or 4 years ago now because there was an identified need in the county and a gap in the service. And we certainly didn't have any out on this end of town. So we do have a water rescue team. And
So is the water rescue team not all EMTs?
no, we have some folks that just support water rescue because they have swim, dive certification, swift water. Again, we'll send you away to get training if it's something you really want to do. So the couple of things I'll touch on again, and I want to bring up, there's a couple of really neat things that have happened to us. One is, and some folks may have seen it, we had a film crew following us back in the spring. And if we opposed it, because you had an emergency, we apologize. But one of our members was chosen by this group to be part of a movie called, it's a feature movie called Into the Unknown. And it's being directed and it's being driven by, if anybody remembers, Randolph Mantooth and Kevin Tye from Emergency back in the 70s. Right, so they are behind this movie. And so one of our members was chosen to be shadowed for the movie. And so we had a film crew out here for several days until they got sick. And they had to go back. But so that's due to be out in the next several months, hopefully. So it should be pretty interesting because it highlights Crozet, it highlights our community. They did a lot of shots of the community and not just the rescue squads. I think everybody, an opportunity to see it, it's pretty neat. It showcases Crozet, which is one of the 4 communities, I think, in the movie. Sparks, Nevada, I can't think of other places. I just want to talk about our call volume. We run on the average of 150 to 200 calls a month. Busy month, we run just over 200 calls. That has seen somewhere between a 10 and 15% bump every year for the last 5 years, except for the year that we had COVID, which everybody decided, I don't want to go to the hospital, I don't need to go to the hospital, we stayed out, which was probably the best place for it. It was good. But they're picking back up now that everything's out and moving around. We ran the highest number of calls we've ever run in 2022, which was 2,100 calls. We ran almost 6,000 calls during the pandemic. And our time metrics continue to be on par with what the expectations are countywide. And we purchased 3 years ago in July, we purchased the property behind the Blue Goose building and beside the post office with the thoughts that we're going to build a new building because we're outgrowing the one we have. And some of the dynamics that we need to do to improve training room, bunk rooms for our crews and stuff. And be able to get everything inside instead of parking it outside. So we are working now with an architect to do a preliminary site study to see what we can build on the site and if it will accommodate and meet our needs. So we're in the very beginning phases of that. That's a big undertaking. The cost of a building, we're going to presume, we're looking at maybe 14,000 to 15,000 square feet. We're guessing somewhere between $8 to $9 million. Because we have to go vertical. So whenever you go up, it costs more than if you go out. And so that piece of property right there, in order to provide what we need, we probably need to have at least 3 floors of a building. So that's kind of the rescue squad in a nutshell.
Where will $8 or $9 million come from?
It'll come from our community, I hope. That's what we're hopeful. We have, so all of the monies that we get for donations now go into a building fund. Okay. So the county, we have an MOU with the county for revenue recovery. We negotiated pretty hard and can certainly attest to our negotiations with the county. And as a matter of fact, not that anybody really is involved in this or cares, but we kind of negotiated how the county would do business based on our negotiations in order to be a part of the program. In other words, we wanted it to be insurance billing only. We didn't want folks to get a bill. There's several things that we put in as a contingency that the county would work with us on it, and they applied that countywide. You may want to say something, but I think we're pretty instrumental in what the program looks like across the county.
I would agree, because in 2008, they could have solved it right then by saying we're going to only bill insurance, but they dragged it out for about 12 years to get it figured out. But well done to you all for setting the bar, because that's really been helpful for everybody else as well.
So we have an MOU with the county. We recover insurance monies. We get our operating budget covered, our vehicles, and then the agreement is that any monies that we get from Fund Drive go directly into a building fund. And so we use those monies for unplanned for expenses. When our Jeep blew up, our 1999 Jeep blew up, and we bought a new Jeep, we use those monies for that. And then otherwise, it sits in a building fund. So we've accumulated some dollars. That's what we use. We pay cash for the property when we bought it. We were able to save, had enough money to save for that. And then as we do fund drives, that money goes on to a bank account for the building. And so we will have a fund drive of sorts coming up for the building.
Of sorts.
Oh,
Great input. Pretty awesome.
And so we'll raise what we can, and we'll borrow what we can't raise, and then we'll do something that's manageable for us, and not overextend ourselves. Yes, good question.
Why does the one new ambulance have a different logo than the old ambulances?
So that's a great question. We decided a different look, right? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think everybody was like tired of the same old drab kind of look, and they're like, why don't we try something different? No specific reason other than we wanted a different look.
So kind of question along the lines of, your challenge is the very rapid growth in this area.
Yeah.
Staffing, you need more equipment, you're all volunteer based. Do you see on the horizon where the county's rapid growth in the area that you're responsible for kind of breaking the rescue squad to a point where you can't operate as a 501c3 anymore and the county has to step in? I just recall one of the things I love about this area is the all-volunteer fire department rescue squad. And I remember it being very emotional when the county had to put in 2 full-time firefighters, because that kind of changed it's no longer all volunteer, right? So I guess my question is, are you concerned running this rescue squad with the rapid growth that it will exceed what you can do as an all-volunteer force, and we're kind of now turning to the county saying, what do we do?
So I think that is definitely something that we have to keep tabs on. I will tell you that during COVID, we didn't onboard new members because of our COVID protocols and our ability to want to protect ourselves. In the last year, we onboarded 24 new members, which is pretty good, right? We onboard on the average of 2 to 3 new people every month, so we have a really good influx. I would really like to see that come from our community. Having community support is critical to us being successful. We have strong EPA support, which is also critical to us, but having folks that live in the community and part of the agency is where it started. It would be great to get more. We do get a couple of folks from the community. It would be great to see more folks from the community, because really the community residents really offer us surge capacity, right? Because we'll put a crew or 2 at the station, but when the tractor trailer, when the bus drives through the tractor trailer one afternoon at 12 o'clock at night, during an ice storm, which happened within the last year, maybe a year and a half ago, and we have 20-some patients, then it's the folks that come from home that help us and bail us out. You know, the day that the train accident happened up here, it was the folks that came from home, and we put somebody in every single vehicle we owned. And that's because there was strong support from the community, so we want to continue with that. And so I think that's a critical component of it. If we can keep community support strong, we've got a really good community, a lot of folks that are willing to participate and ask about it. So we're trying to make sure that we make that known to everybody. And we're willing and happy to have folks come in, and we try to fit what our needs are with what your ability to give is, right? We see it as a puzzle. Right? My role as chief is to put the puzzle together, right? You're a piece, and you're a piece, and you're a piece, and then try to fit all that together and make sure we make a picture of it.
Do I have to have a mustache like you if I want to volunteer?
No, you don't have to. It's helpful sometimes to hide my face sometimes. No, I think, so we always look for folks, but I think you're right. I mean, I think the other thing that we've seen, interestingly enough, is we've seen Crozet transition from a different type of community. So I can tell you that our highest call volume 5 years ago was Monday morning. And those were our peak calls were during the day. Over the last year, our highest call volume hits us Saturday from noon to 6 o'clock. It hits us in the evening from 5 to 8 o'clock. So we've seen a transition of when we're peaking with our calls. And that has to do with, I think, the transition of the Crozet community being kind of more of a bedroom community, right? So during the day, folks leave Crozet, we still run calls, and we still do a lot of things, but what we're seeing is that influx of folks on weekends and in the evenings is when we start to peak our calls out. And we're seeing, different call type. I can tell you, I spoke to a group of potential members not too terribly long ago and said, we see a lot of falls, we see, chest pain, shortness of breath, we see a lot of those things. We have some older facility, older care facilities in the community. I said, we don't see a lot of overdoses. And, I tell you, in the last 6 months, we're running somewhere between 1 to 2 overdoses a week, if not more. Our numbers for that specific call type have quadrupled in what we used to run to what we run now. So don't run any shootings with knives yet. I'm going to say that hopefully.
Follow-up question. I was a former police officer in New Hampshire. What mental health and type of services do you provide to volunteers? Because they're seeing some young, for the first time, pretty tragic events that would be used for that.
So I think it's a great question. One, mental health is cumulative, right? It's like boxing. It's like head injuries. It's not just one event that's bad that pushes you over the edge. Usually, it's small event, small event, small event, small event, and it may be even an insignificant event that pushes you over the edge. So you have to look at mental health as a cumulative process. We are very strongly supporting our folks. We have insurance. So we have, the county provides us insurance. We've got an additional rider that gives us another, $500,000 worth of insurance for folks. So anything that's identified as a mental health need, we pay for it. So basically, we cover that cost. We encourage that. Mental health is a big priority for us. It's a lot of burnout in healthcare these days. If you look at the news, what's happening in hospitals and what's happening across the healthcare market, and do we have folks that and it's not even the rescue squad. It's family, it's work, it's all of these things that bring mental health together. Right? It's not just one thing. So while you may say, hey, maybe because I see all this stuff, we just don't see that much of that kind of thing, but it doesn't mean that what you see doesn't become cumulative. And it adds on to what's going on at home versus work and your stresses of finances and all those things. So we are very supportive of our members and take a very proactive approach, I would say. Like there are folks that we've said, you probably shouldn't run call, but there are other things that they can do to help you with supplies or whatever this may be, or help with our accountant, our bookkeeper, our treasurer is a nurse at UVA. She doesn't run calls. That's what she does. And for us, it's an agency. So yes, so we're on top of that. I'd like to say we're pretty proactive and we encourage folks to get help and we definitely worry about folks. And we do, like you said, you know, the one thing about junior members that we know for a fact is that they haven't developed coping mechanisms yet. And so we try to keep tabs on our young folks that may have not seen anybody ever die before.
Tom, maybe the last question.
Yeah, I just want to say, Cassius, and you know this, all is not rosy. When the medic from the fire crew during the day goes with the rescue squad, what happens is that engine comes out of service until their medic gets back, which means this town is not protected, and the nearest fire station is 151 down the road. So that's how much time that's going to take if there's a fire emergency. NFPA calls for an engine company to be 4 men, and the county only staffs with 3. So I just want to point out that there are flaws in the system.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we're talking with the county about. I know they just put in for, when you look at the new budget that's coming out, there's another safer grant for another 30 people. And while those mostly may be directed towards, I'm thinking Scottsville and Monticello, it does give them the flexibility to add a 4th person, which means that the engine doesn't go out of service if we need somebody to ride in with us on a call or to pick up an ambulance for a second. And again, the biggest issue is even in the fire service, 70% of fire service calls are EMS. Right? We're not fighting nearly as much fire, but if you have a fire, you want a fire truck to be here. And so that's why all of the fire service folks are trained medically now. And it's the same reason we're putting 2 ambulances out or staffing. Yes, I'm sorry.
Related to that, do you know how many calls of yours are motor vehicle accidents and how many calls the fire department has that they're responding to that are also motor vehicle accidents?
We go together. So a motor vehicle accident gets a fire truck and an ambulance. That's a standard response because it is actually a fire incident and there may be somebody hurt at it, if you think of it that way. So every time there's a motor vehicle accident, there's an automatic dispatch of 2 fire trucks. If it's on the interstate, it gets 2 fire apparatus, 1 to provide offensive mitigation with the incident, and 1 to block because of the high number of folks who get hit on the interstate. If it's on a secondary road, it gets a single engine. But every accident gets an engine, a fire truck, and an ambulance. And then if there's an injury, the ambulance takes it and goes on. The fire does the fire response type stuff.
But a rough estimate of the percentage of your calls that are NBA?
You know, Tom, I don't know what you know about I know last month you probably, I see you run, like today when we went to call, our ambulance didn't go, just our squad truck went, because it was not in our first due area, right? It was over in Keswick that this wreck was at. But I would say it's a small number. I mean, I can get it for you, probably, I can pull that data up. I can tell you that the big truck that goes out on wrecks goes out somewhere between 5 and 10 times a month. And we run 150 calls, right? So it probably is like 10%, 5 to 10% maybe. Not high. We're running a lot more stuff on the interstate these days, though.
Yeah.
We're guaranteed to be out on the interstate at least a couple times a week, especially after mountain.
There are a lot of incidents too with MVAs where you don't get called, whether it's just fluids down, it's minor accidents, no injury, but yet they need a fire engine there until the record gets there, or if there are fluids down to make sure that they're, not a problem.
Yeah, there's a fair number. Like if you hit a deer, you don't need an ambulance. You do need a fire truck because somebody needs to throw some stuff down on the oil that's leaking out of your car so nobody skids on it, that kind of thing. So not always do they both. But the rescue squad won't go without a fire truck because it's always a fire incident and then it may need EMS service.
Thank you very much, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, and thank you for all you do and your
Yeah.
crew.
Wait, can you just tell people how they can volunteer or tell their friends how to volunteer?
Yeah, you go to our website. You can call me, or you can go to Allie, who has my number, and she can tell you how to get in touch with me. You certainly can reach out to me directly, or you can email membership@westernrescue.org.
And you don't have to be an EMT.
You don't.
And
We do EMT training, and we pay for it. If you join before the EMT class, we'll pay for it. If you join after you take an EMT class, then we'll reimburse you once you've been a member for a year.
And how often do you run EMT classes?
Twice a year. We do January, September, and then the county does one in the summer. So we kind of work together to try to overlap our offerings.
Same thing for the fire department, always looking for volunteers, we'll train
Yeah.
them.
I do recruiting for the fire department, so
Oh,
come down and see me.
And it's not, I mean, we work together, right?
Right.
So like the fire department has training, we try to, all of our crews work together, and so it's not a them versus us thing. So some folks like fighting fire, some folks like EMS. I can tell you, interestingly enough, and I'm not poking anybody in the eye, the fire service tends itself to be more male-oriented. The rescue squad, I would tell you that 60 to 70% of our members are women. And as the chief, as Gary said to me, he says, we have like 3 women. And he said, and you've got all these people. But EMS lends itself, healthcare seems like lends itself, firefighting lends itself to men, and healthcare, when we separate out the ambulance from the fire station, lends itself to more women. And most of our crews, we have several all-women crews, and so, interesting now, it's a different mix than is normal, because we're separated, I think.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Our final presentation this evening will be from Allison, who is going to walk us through County View for a little bit.
So you all may have heard Ann and I talking a little bit about County View. I think it's, gosh, I don't know how old County View is, but it's a pretty old system. It was like built for the county in particular, which is not how you necessarily want your systems nowadays. But the county is in the process of getting a new system that will hopefully be up and running sometime the next calendar year, 2024. But we still thought that it was a good idea to talk about County View because it is useful if you want to look up development applications, and it takes you in a nice way to the back end of the system where you can look at the actual documents. I will be making a video with this script after this meeting at some point in the near future. So this will be on YouTube, and we'll share it out with the CACs and everybody. There's some stuff with the GIS I need to double check that I'm explaining it correctly. Yeah, so then the other exciting thing besides a new system coming in the future is the development dashboard is coming back. I want to say, I'll say early summer. I think that will give her enough time. I think Tori is working on it right now, and I think she plans on updating it a couple times a year, so this is still useful if you really want to check on something yourself. You can go to County View. So the County View system is the building permit applications, planning applications, and zoning applications system. It provides general information about county properties. So the tutorial there's one online that's a little older, and some of those functions are no longer part of the website. But this will be the basics of how to use County View if you're not familiar with development applications. So to access County View, there are 2 main ways. One is to go to the website, which is countyviewweb.albemarle.org, and it takes you to this lovely page. The other way to do it is through the county website. So if you go to the county website and you click government, and then you click community development, over on the side is under request. You can open that up, or you can click on request, and then you can go to application tracking and status updates. And there's some information here on County View. Like I said, some of these items are a little on the older side and have functions that no longer exist in County View, so it may be a little confusing. But hopefully I've kind of used some of these items to base this process off of. So kind of just cut out a lot of the excess stuff that was there. But that is here as well, and then you can access County View here through that. So when you are on the County View page, there are 5 options that you can use here. The GIS, you can click to it through here, as well as you can view parcel activity. You can view the selected planning application, so if you know the actual application number as like an example right here, or the building application. And then you can also view property information. So in this overview, we're really going to focus on the GIS, parcel activity, and planning applications, because those are some popular ones. So for example, for County View, you really don't want to use your back button on your browser. The system's old, it doesn't like that. An example of what you will use instead, for instance, is there is this application home button, and that is really what you want to use to take you back to the main page. You do not want to use your back button, which is kind of counterintuitive, and if you're on the internet or your computer a lot, you use your back button frequently, you don't want to use that here. If you click on Albemarle County here, it will take you to the county website, which is useful if you'd like to go there. And you can always right-click and open in a new tab too if you want to keep County View open. And so to find information on County View, you need to have one of the following items. So you will need at least the permit or application number, the parcel ID, or the property address. And one of the other interesting things about this is you kind of have to have it as it appears in the tax records. So for instance, the examples I have here are Huntington. You want to search it as Huntington or Huntington RD, but not Huntington Road. So you want to be as, not vague as possible, but maybe use only the first, use only the name of the road. So Crozet instead of Crozet Avenue, if you don't know if it's spelled Avenue or Ave. And same for street names, obviously. The parcel IDs, you do not want to use dashes. If you go to the GIS, which is what I recommend to find this information, and I'll show you in a second, you will have the dashes on the GIS, but you want to take those out. And then tax map with parcel, if you are familiar with tax maps and parcels, the starting and the ending numbers are important. I don't typically search that way, and I don't think many people will, but that is an example in some of the old documentation. And then owner's names, so it's how it appears in the tax records. So for example, you probably want to be as vague as possible, search a last name, or a last name comma first name, or even a first name, and they will all show up. As an example here, your first and last name in the typical order will not work because that's not how it is listed in the tax records. So the other options too are the planning application number, which is typically found in like meeting agendas or some other county documentation, and that's pretty useful to have, especially if you want to look up a specific application. And then the project name, I personally would not recommend using that because there are so many variations of things, and you may think the project name is one thing and it may not be, as the example here. And then, oh, what type of permits are in County View? All of these, this list I think is a little bit outdated. I think there's a couple other ones in here now too. But I would say the popular ones probably that people want to look at are Architectural Review Board, zoning clearances perhaps, and then special use permits. Site plans are pretty useful, and then zoning map amendments, which are rezonings. And so we'll go back to County View. So the way I recommend, if you see something, you drive by it on the street and you're like, what the heck is going on there? I want to know. Your best bet is to open GIS, and there's a couple different ways. If you do know the address or the street name or the owner name, or if you're really savvy and know the parcel ID, or it is your property and you know the parcel ID, you can type that all in here. It will auto-fill for you, so that's nice, and you can not have to deal with knowing if it's drive or DR or whatever the abbreviation may be. And then you can also do by owner name. And they will all come up here, and then you can select from a number of things. Or, so I had an example of doing a Crozet Elementary School. So that is 1407 on Crozet Ave. And then you can search. And if there are multiple options, they'll come up over here and you'll be asked to select one or select multiple, and then it will highlight it for you. So why this is important, like I said too, is if you want to pull from the parcel ID, or you can use the address since you have it and they know it, but this is kind of the address you would actually want to use without typing in the avenue. So you can take this, I'll use the parcel ID as an example, and you want to copy it, right click and copy, go here, and so I will show you guys with the parcel activity page. So you'll click on that, you will arrive here, and so from this drop-down menu you can select tax map and parcel search, which is those kind of starting with numbers, parcel ID, which is what I have in my copy right now, the owner's name, address, or street name. So I'm going to click parcel ID, I'm going to paste it in here, and then I'm going to go in and delete the dashes. And sometimes there is a leading, or a space at the end, not a leading space, a space at the end, and you'll want to make sure that that's not there, otherwise it will not work. So then you can click go, and you will see all of the applications that have ever been submitted for this property under this parcel ID, and all of the building, planning and building applications submitted. So the probably most recent one is the SDP, which is the site development plan or site plan, 2022-00054. So if you'd like to select one of these, I'm just going to select that one. You click on it and it kind of does that with the page, and then you click View Selected Planning Application. And it will take you to this page, which is what it will look like for all of these. So the application number will be right here, so if you want to continue to follow just this particular application, you could take note of that for yourself, or for the list item you will want to keep, which could be for specific parcels, or specific projects, or specific applications. So the project name will be here, the date it was received, the date it was submitted, the current status. I'll also caution you all on if it says deferred, it doesn't always mean it's deferred forever. How the county process works is if you don't complete it by a certain point, if you don't go to the board or don't make that process to start going to the board, if you're not ready because you have comments you need to address, you need to defer it so you can give yourself time, or you'll have to resubmit fully, I think is the case afterwards. But so sometimes it says deferred, but it's still in the process and will return. So this is approved, it's already been built. And then if there is comments, they'll be here in the legal ad, which is typically like the documentation you see at the top of a staff report that says the name of the project, how many acres it is, what the zoning currently, what are they asking it to be changed to, etc. And you can see some of the developer information or application information submissions down here. And then one of the most useful parts about this system is under this navigation tab under reviews. So you want to click reviews, and then you can see kind of where stuff is at. So if it's been received, it'll say received, when the comments are due, and when it's been completed, you can see the status. And then really the fun part is the related documents. So if you click related documents, it will take you to this page where there's a link. So you can click this link, and it will open, and it will be all of the back-end documentation for this site plan. So you can see the comments that have been submitted, the actual plan. What's kind of nice about this site too is you don't have to open a new tab. It will do it for you for everything. So you can see the detailed site plan, you can save it as a PDF and really zoom in on it, all the fun stuff. So you're able to see everything that was submitted with that project. So if you're like, oh, this isn't actually what I was looking for, you can return to the application home, and you can go back to the parcel activity. It will automatically be there, but you can, so if you do want to look at more of the possible applications on this site, you can click on this property, you can click, and they'll all come back up. And then again, so you're like, oh, just kidding, I wanted the 2010 site plan. So if you select a planning application, related documents will take you to this, and you can open and you can see all the documentation. So say you did already know, return home. You did already know the planning application that you were looking for. So you can click here. This is already coming in for me, but it's a different, slightly different search criteria. So you can do parcel ID again, but you can also do project name, which I said is kind of hit or miss unless you 100% know what the name is, or the application number. So in this case, we do know the application number that we just looked at, which was SDP 2022-00054. And I may have typed it in wrong. Let's see. Doesn't like me. So this is part of the issue with this. Sometimes you think you're doing things right, and it's a little finicky. So I'm just going to go home again, and let's see if I can get this to do it. Yeah, this thing is 0 here. Nope, 3 zeros. So there it is. And you can, again, see the current status, all this information. You can see the page 2, for some reason, for a lot of the newer items is empty. And then you can also see the reviews, and then you can see the related documents. So let's see. Sorry, I'm kind of rushing through this. But yeah, so that's the basics of it. Really, the pro tips in my mind are utilize GIS. So say maybe you don't exactly know that you want to look at Crozet Elementary, or you don't know the address of the property. It's something you maybe drive by. Make sure you're on Identify a Pan, and you can zoom in here to a certain point, and then you're able to click properties. So for instance, we will do this property, and you can see more info. You can see the parcel ID, just get rid of the dashes, or the address, and then you can copy and paste it over here. So key tips: use the GIS to find the information you need, and then don't use the back button is really the big takeaway. And like what happened to me, you may have to try a couple times. I heard recently that someone had found an application that was typed in wrong, like a number was wrong in something, which eventually was fixed when they couldn't find it for a while. So I think some of this is still manually entered, which is another reason why the county is moving away from this and beginning a new system. But it's pretty useful. So I know you all are interested in that development. That will have a community meeting here in the near future. So you can use this to kind of look at what's been submitted so far. It will take you to this website, which also has some ways that you can browse through by project application number. So if you go to community development, public access, planning, all the applications are here. It's a little funny of a site as well. When you click on zoning map amendments or rezonings, it will come up from 1968, and then if you sort by name, you can get the most recent applications that have been submitted. You can see the date that the file was created, and if you open it, you can see everything that's been submitted so far. So County View is a nice way to get to this if you don't necessarily know the application number, but you know the property, or you find it from GIS and get that information. So eventually County View takes you to this kind of stuff, or you can find it this way if you're just interested in looking at what's been submitted. So are there any questions or any thoughts? It's kind of convoluted, like I said, but it will change, and the development dashboard is coming back, but if you guys would like to look up stuff in the meantime, or even faster than that gets updated, this is how you do that. So like I said to you, I'll be recording this in a little more detail and kind of the step-by-step, here's what you need to be doing for the GIS, the parcel activity, and the planning application. So those are kind of the main ones. Building applications are typically like, you got a permit to do electrical stuff. So not too interesting, but it is similar to the selected planning application information. So if there are any questions, I probably able for a while, but hopefully this is useful. And like I said too, as you watch me get stuck, it's not always the end if you get stuck. You may just need to try again.
Thanks,
Sure.
The only other agenda item we had is to recognize some of our departing members. They're not departing, I realize that sounds weird, they're not like departing life, they're departing the committee. Their terms are expired, okay, let's say that. And so I just want to take a few minutes to make sure that we recognize them for their service and give them an opportunity to say, you know, anything that they want to do, any parting thoughts or words of wisdom as they transition off the committee. So I believe, I think Mike Kunkel's term is up. So Mike, a former secretary and longtime member, is transitioning off the board. Mark, I believe this is your last meeting. I don't know if you have any thoughts or words or things that you'd like to share.
No, thank you, it's been enjoyable. I just had to sit and look at life as a whole with 4 kids in 900 different directions during the week, and work, and although it's one night of the month, it seems to always be the one night of the month where we have many things going on, and I'll still be around, I'll be involved. I'll be retiring from the military over the next year, so that's another kind of big driving factor where I have to shift my focus right now. So it's just a small window of time, but I'll probably come back to the board down the road when I'm bored at home and my kids are not as active. But thank you.
Thank you.
And of course, like everybody else, you have a seat. There are many seats available every month. Sean Bird, former vice chair of the committee and longtime member of the committee.
Yeah.
Anything you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, actually, I did some reminiscing on my departure. I was trying to remember sort of why I got involved in the first place, and I kind of got roped in. Tom Loach and Allie and Tim Tolson and others. I came to Crozet having a specialty in survey research, and we were just about to undertake a scientific survey of the Crozet population. And me and Tom Guterbach at the UVA Survey Center helped volunteer our time for that. And so the data geek that I am, I went back into the PowerPoint presentation that I gave early 2018 here. And what is stunning is how similar Tom's survey that he mentioned a couple weeks ago, and if you look at the master plan discussion and the comp plan discussion that's going on, I think it's important for both the committee and the community and our county representatives and staff to realize that we've been collecting a lot of input, right? We do input here, there's these listening sessions, we've done surveys, and I think we always try to listen, but once in a while I want the county to actually hear that there is pretty much since I've lived here, 6, 7 years, there's been a pretty clear and consistent message from the community about development and what we want. And I don't think it's a mystery. And I really want people to realize that. When we did our survey, we had large majorities of people. And here are the main findings, and tell me if this sounds familiar to our recent discussion. Why do people live in Crozet? They live here because they like the small town feel, low crime, the natural surroundings, and good schools. And basically that is wrapped up in this sense of quality of life. This is why we live here. But when we think about that quality of life, there are some concerns, 7 of them. 1, they feel like Crozet's growth has outpaced infrastructure, schools, roads. And the growth should slow down until infrastructure catches up. Does that sound familiar? Number 2, do not expand the growth area. What we have, most people who live in this community want to keep it that way. They're not looking to expand it. 75% in our surveys support that. Support infill, like we were talking about here, but not at crazy high density rates. So I think that was pretty relevant to the first presentation. We're all supportive of some of the current zoning, but when it gets out of whack, that's what concerns us. 4th, build up the downtown first before we build up commercially 250 or other areas for Crozet. We're still waiting on that square, hopefully it's going to happen, but make sure that we have a vibrant downtown before we worry about more Harris Teeter type developments. Increase pedestrian and bike access and safety. Protect green spaces, because that's why many of us have lived here. These were all like super high items in the 2017 survey. And more affordable housing options, and we've heard a lot about that. And it just strikes me that even what we found 5, 6 years ago is basically what Tom found in his survey that he did online. And basically, I think what you hear when the county holds these listening sessions. So in my opinion, we have spoken and we speak consistently and clearly that these are the goals and priorities for vast majority of Crozetians. So I just want to leave it with that I think we can keep holding listening sessions from the county, but I think one of the frustrating things for many of us is a lot of these decisions, like your zoning decision, will get decided by 6 people, and one of them represents us. And the other 5 don't live here, and probably have a different view. And that's just kind of a frustrating thing for a lot of us. So it's been an absolute pleasure serving, and I'll certainly stay involved as much as I can.
Thank you very much, Sean. Thank you for your service. Ally Fish, longtime chair.
Thanks. I'm gonna move so I don't have my back to the camera. But yeah, I don't have anything compared to that. Was great. Thank you for bringing all that up. And yeah, I just want to say thank you. Thanks to my husband for coming tonight to work the camera, and I'll still be at the meetings doing that. And it's been a pleasure. And yeah, this is my 6th year on the committee, so you're done with me. But I'll still be here. And thanks. And thanks for everybody. And I joined because, I'm a second generation CCAC member. Both of my parents have been on the committee in its past iterations, and I chose to live here and have raised my own family here, and so I think it's, I hope if any of my children decide to stay in Crozet that they want to follow in our footsteps and stay involved and keep working on, keeping Crozet great. And I just love seeing Steven bring his kid, and so that's why I'm here. Because, I don't know, sometimes it feels like it's like a lot of the, you know, we gotta keep replacing, you can't do this forever, so I always need younger people to join, right?
So do we have full, do we have new people and we're gonna have a
I mean,
full-
that's not everybody that's leaving, right? Sandy is leaving,
Sandy, yes.
Costas.
I think I have another.
I think that's, Preston has another year.
Okay,
Yeah.
you somehow re-upped.
Yeah. Costas has another year. Michael, your term's up, but are you sticking around?
I plan to.
Okay.
Sending your,
Do you have a reapply?
Okay, goodness.
it
All
looks
right.
like 5 vacancies right now. I'm going,
It's
"Oh
pretty
my God."
easy to
Come
reapply.
on, people,
Yes.
fill out your form.
So yes, that's a great point, and we do have vacancies, we have terms that are expiring, we have vacancies, so please, 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 those of us that are on, you know, people that we know, people that attend,
Please join us.
yeah.
I think there are 7 vacancies.
Yes.
6 if Michael reapplies. I think there's just 1 vacancy and then 6
End of term.
ends of terms, yeah. So I think you all appoint people at the first meeting of the month now, is that the case for every month?
That is generally when it happens, so please tell your,
Some more time to think about it and
Yeah.
let your
Don't wait
friends
too
and
long.
neighbors know.
yeah, at least a week in advance, so before the end of the month, please get those applications in. But I'm very proud of the geographic distribution that this committee has had, because we have 15 different neighborhoods basically represented. I mean, North and South St. George are 2 different neighborhoods, so thank you for that. But it has been really, really important to get points of view from people all around, everywhere, so. And even way out to Waytown, that's why.
Outside the growth area, just like me.
Well, they're the border of the growth areas on the
Right.
one side.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, that brings us, that was our final agenda item. Are there any final updates, announcements, parting thoughts before we go? Seeing none, I believe
Thanks,
we
Joe.
are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Stay tuned.